Hello, Alaska. I'm hydrologist Bob Busey here with the Alaska Pacific River Forecast Center, and I'm here to bring you the 2023 Alaska Spring Breakup Outlook. As a reminder, it's always a good idea to be flood ready, especially this time of year as we move deeper into breakup season. You most likely have your emergency plan and your communication plan lined out, but if you haven't, it's not too late to start. It's also a good time to think about maybe moving any vehicles up to higher ground and putting together an emergency first aid kit, any medications you might need, any personal local foods you might have, put those in a safe place and they're ready to reach. Just going to touch on this briefly. We've all been going over week by week these factors. These are the elements that go into a severe breakup or a mild breakup. The amount of snow on the ground, the snowpack, the ice thickness and strength, and spring weather patterns. We're going to touch on all three of these briefly over the next few minutes. So, snowpack. This is what it looked like on April 1st. We had the long-term average, we are right around 100 to 150%, so 1.5 times the average. The deeper the blue, the more snow. But April 1st was quite a while ago at this point. Let's talk about how things look today. Here's a map as of yesterday showing snowpack across Alaska, and this is as a percentage of the snowpack about a month ago. You can see many of the low-lying areas. They're approaching snow-free, but not necessarily snow-free yet. But as you move up higher in elevation and higher up towards the North Slope and the Brooks Range, there's still quite a bit of snow. So while where you are locally, you might not see much snow, there still might be quite a bit of snow in your watershed, and just be aware of that in how it relates to the ice, the river ice. Also, ice thickness. It's May, we don't have too many more ice thickness measurements, but the ones that we do, they show that it's still pretty thick in these locations, 3 to 4 feet. And we got a report yesterday from an observer that it's still pretty good integrity on the ice in the Eagle area. So, as always, think twice on ice. Moving on to flood potential. This is our 48-hour map, and we have a watch out for the Eagle area, and we're telling you to be careful on the Yukon further south of downriver of Eagle. For more information, visit our webpage. Well, we are a little further into spring, and that does mean that for the parts of Alaska that aren't the interior and the northern reaches, there is some open water. Here's a current map of our spring breakup, and you can keep tabs and maybe do some recreational boating on some of these navigable places. It's on our main webpage, and you can see our color code over here, and some places are mostly open, which can mean you can get out there. We also released an updated version of our breakup outlook. This is from yesterday, and we shifted things slightly. We shifted by a day from 4 to 7 days later than average in the eastern Alaska, and we shifted by a day later the outlook for western Alaska, and we're now saying 8 to 11 days later. What does 8 to 11 days later mean? Well, we do have some actual breakups now. This is the long-term period of record breakup dates, and you can see now that we have Dawson and we have noaa. Dawson went out 5 days later than average, and noaa went 8 days later, and you can kind of anchor everything downstream of those. Similarly on the Kuskokwim, it went out on Nikolai, and Nikolai was 9 days later than average, but there's a pretty big spread on Nikolai, and it doesn't kind of match up quite as nicely with other parts of the Kuskokwim. So we're just happy that it's broken up. Moving on to temperature, this is the Climate Prediction Center's outlook for Alaska, temperature-wise, and you'll see here that things are like slightly above normal or slightly below normal, depending on where you are. But if you zoom in on the pie charts, we're basically looking like things are going to be about normal, just a nudge one way or the other, not like anything to get excited about. If it's warmer, it's just kind of, it's normal. But what does normal mean? Well, it is mid-May, and that means temperatures are above freezing for the most part. This is looking at Bethel on the lower Kuskokwim, and you can see the temperatures really popped up, and we're getting some nice warming, and the extended forecast is temperatures not going below freezing at night. If we move upriver to McGrath, it's the same story. We had a cold March, cold April. They were kind of colder than average, you can see, and but since late April and into May, temperature has been normal. And now that temperatures are normal in May, that means we're getting above freezing and we're staying above freezing at night. I focused quite a bit today on the Yukon. I focused on the Kuskokwim, but there are other rivers in Alaska and there are people that care about them. This is a zoom in on Koyukuk, and we're looking at Bettles. In Bettles, the story is basically the same as it has been southward. We had a cold spring, March and April, and then in late April, things became approaching normal. But once again, normal in April and late April and May means temperatures around freezing, and now we're getting to be pretty warming, and all that snow that didn't melt in April is now melting in May. The big event of the week was both Nenana breaking up and also Dawson. Here's a little clip of the river going out in Dawson from earlier this week. You can see it really gets rolling. And then as the day goes on, there's a little bit less ice and a little bit more flow. So that's Canada. How about Alaska? This is the first community on the Yukon downriver of Dawson, and this is Eagle. Here, this is a current hydrograph as of this morning, and you can see that the stage in Eagle is rising and rising, but we haven't had breakup as of now, but we may have it in the next day or two when we anticipate, just like I had the 48-hour warning out there. So great. Let's take a look at some photos from around the state. This is down by Fairbanks on the Tanana. Lots of ice in the river, and then we move down to the Kuskokwim. This is Sleet Mute, and then moving downstream, this is some RiverWatch photos from our team on the Kuskokwim. You can see that there's still quite a bit of ice and still not as much melting as we'd like to see. Anyway, thanks for listening, and thank you so much for tuning in for our community calls, and as well for our observers who have been sending in messages, sending in photos via Fresh Eyes on Ice or email, and everyone who's paying attention and being safe this flood season.